What's up, nerds? It's Ebony Warrior Studios here for our second episode of Friends with No Benefits. I am accompanied by Sydney and Desiree yet again, and today's topic is going to be on true crime. Well, technically, it's white women in true crime, but it's true crime. So, why do women like true crime to begin with? This is not my area of expertise, so I'm going to let y'all take over.
Oh, okay.
There are so many various reasons that people give as to why women like true crime. A lot of it is like this idea that you have like this like preparedness in a way. You listen to it and you're like, oh, well, now I understand what to look out for, which puts the onus of, you know, on women
Mhm.
again. Basically victim blaming. But that's like a lot of the reason that I read about. Another reason I read is because women experience gendered violence. It tends to be like, you go back to this, your trauma, you go back to what you know kind of thing. And I think that might be another
Right.
reason for it. I think a good area of discussion, though, is just how, like, true crime has essentially transmogrified into something that's very fetishizing that white woman in a sense, if that makes
That's
sense.
actually a really good point. That when I was doing my little, background information and whatnot, so everyone, I don't think everyone knows about the, what is it called? Oh, missing white woman syndrome. It's an actual thing. This is an actual thing. So in news cycles, what garners views is missing white women or trauma or bad things that befall white women. You will never see them like headline news of a missing person that is a black woman, woman of color. I mean, missing and murdered indigenous women is a thing for a reason. You never see that on the news. But what garners views, what always gets the headlines is missing white women. You remember that the white girl who went on the hiking trip with her boyfriend and like they were seen going to the hiking trip and then the boyfriend came back by himself and whatnot. And
I think you're talking about Brian
yeah, I think
Laundry.
that was him. And then his parents like helped him or something like that.
Yep, Gabby Petito and
Hmm.
Brian Laundry. That's who
Yeah,
it is. Yes. It basically is how highly fetishized it was because, oh, she's a petite, pretty, you know, blonde
hmm,
white girl. Not to say that her case wasn't important. There were a lot of issues, that happened, and it raised issues about domestic violence awareness and, the complicity of the parents. But it's worth talking about saying, like, there are, black women missing murdered indigenous women who also experience
hmm.
these things, and they are not headlining the
Oh yeah,
news.
it's
Yeah,
I
no,
think.
absolutely. I think it's a selective focus within the
Mhm.
media. They tend to actually over-report on missing white women versus women of color who are missing. I believe, I want to say maybe last year or the year before, I think it was 73,000 black women and girls that were missing. Now we're up to like 92,000. And so, I mean, the same way that we technically, or women in general, obsess over true crime and most of those victims are white, I wish we had that same, obsession with black women and missing women of color in this country. It's
Yeah,
it's it's crazy when you think about it.
yeah. I
I mean, it feeds into that infantilization of white women. and making sure that the white woman is always seen as something innocent and must be protected,
Right.
kind of thing that we talked about with the Klan propaganda from the last
Right.
episode.
And it,
Is that's what
I
it
think
feeds
that
into.
also segues into another important topic, or another important part of that. It's how, though white women experience, women in general experience, that violence, right? But white women are particularly positioned in this hierarchy of white supremacy and patriarchy where they understand their power and position in that system. So they will utilize that in a way that is not good sometimes. They will. It doesn't matter. I say this often. It doesn't matter what a white woman does. Someone like doesn't matter what kind of messed up thing a white woman does. Someone will always come to their defense, and they know that. They grow up knowing this. Like one of the best examples, Emmett Till. Emmett Till minding his business,
Mhm.
blamed by a white woman, and murdered by her brothers. All white jury acquits them. She lives her entire life, no consequences for getting a black boy murdered because she wanted to. Or the videos that you see today of white women getting into altercations in stores or grocery stores, and they immediately go into hysterics, screaming because they know that a white woman screaming will have people coming to their defense. The the white lady at the pool, calling the police, that meme, the white lady with the sunglasses. They understand the power that they have within this system of white supremacy. That's why they always threatening to call the police or threatening to scream. And this is not, again, this is not to take away from the issues of violence against women, but white women are particularly positioned to utilize their power and privilege in an incredibly dangerous way.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
think
it's
women in general, as far as being or having this obsession with true crime, I think there's a bit of like fear and like, I don't know, self preservation at times attached to why they're sort of obsessed with true crime. The safety aspect, the sense of justice, maybe even identifying with the victim,
Mm-hmm.
a sort of control of the narrative too, maybe guessing ahead of the narrator as far as who did it and why.
Right.
Also, the obsession with why. There's a lot that goes into it, but there's definitely a glamorization of the genre,
Mm.
specifically when there's a lot more white women being pushed to the forefront as far as their victimhood.
and I think that's probably the best way of putting it is the glamorization of it that actually makes it a problem because we do have in the true crime genre cases where they are trying to utilize this, what is essentially entertainment media, for cases of good. I'm thinking of, podcasts that brought to light wrongful convictions, like Adnan
Mm.
Syed, for example. Trying to utilize these wrongful convictions, but I feel like those don't get, well, they do become popularized. I think I say Adnan Syed because he is a very popular, notable wrongful conviction case. But because they wrongful convictions end up being, sometimes that means the case goes
Mm-hmm.
unsolved, they don't want to be picked up as
Right.
often. So then you have to look, it forces us to look at how did the justice system become this when it's supposed to be protecting, you know, innocent white women,
Mm.
if that makes sense, from the scary
Yeah.
brown man. But oh no, it wasn't the scary brown man. What do you
Mm.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, it also plays into how white supremacists love focusing the same way that they did back in the day. Remember we talked about Birth of a Nation, how the fear of white people was, the big scary black man. We have the KKK has to come in and save white women from black men, when that wasn't a thing. That was not a danger. Like, black people were quite literally trying to survive in Reconstruction era United States. They were, you know, barely scraping by. Black people were not just trying to find white people to attack, and that wasn't happening. But white people created this fear in their heads of black people, and that's carried over to today. The fear of black and brown people, even though most crime is in communities is done against other members of that community. So most crime against black people is done by other black people. Most crime against white people is done by crime or but by other white people. And white supremacy would want you, or white supremacists especially today, want you to believe that there is this onslaught of attacks against white people by black and brown people. I mean, we just saw an example in DC a couple weeks ago. I can't remember their name right now, but these two influencers from like TikTok, this white guy and his wife, they're huge supporters of Trump. They went out onto the street and accused a black man of saying that he was going to slit their child's throat out of nowhere, just out of the blue. And this man got arrested for that. Come to find out, man had done no such thing. And what happens in situations like this is it really does not matter if there is no conviction against the black or brown person. The court of public opinion will judge them guilty. And I think for a lot of white people, situations like that, they get cleared, they can move on with their lives. But things like that for black and brown people, black people especially, the court of public opinion's already tainted your name. It does not matter. You could tell them till you're blue in the face, show them the evidence. No, this wasn't me. I was cleared, whatever. Everyone's already got that image in their head of big, scary, whoever you are. And I think a lot of palm colored people don't. A lot of these conversations have to do with how palm colored people don't take into account someone else's lived experience or worldview. They're always coming at things from the perspective of me being a white person and walking through this world with my whiteness and white privilege, even though they may not recognize what they're doing or how they're living is that white privilege. And a lot of times that plays into the true crime thing too. How for a lot of the whiteness is centered in true crime. I mean, some of the most popular um, documentaries and things like that, because everybody loves these tell-all documentaries and whatnot. The most popular ones are always centering white folks and whiteness, and it also plays into, like Sydney was saying, the sensationalism and how drama, people love the drama and whatnot. But I think we've really the drama is synonymous with whiteness in a way that everyone kind of gravitates towards those stories where something bad or something uh dramatic, something scary is happening to white people, and white people are very like gotta protect white people, gotta protect white women especially. Oh my god, what's gonna happen? And it really feels like that they know the selling point, and that's why they use it. What was the one we were watching? The most recent one, the one about the catfishing.
Unknown number. But one thing I want to say while I have it on my head before we talk about that batshit crazy of a documentary is the what you were saying about that black and brown folks have the
Mm-hmm.
presumption of guilt even if they've already proven themselves innocent, exonerated themselves, saying there's no way I could have done this, is you don't see that same kind of energy for white people very often, even when they've been proven guilty. The case in point is Brock Turner. Okay. Especially when it comes to the
Mm-hmm.
court, the court system itself. If you've got a white judge and they are looking at a white boy versus a black person who has been convicted of who stands accused of the same crime, they are going to be more harsh towards the black person than they are the white person.
Yeah. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
absolutely. Speaking of that, like, just while we're on the topic, like, as far as what you were saying, Xavier, about just, how we view, white people versus black people, criminals, or even victims. At times, I just feel like a lot of people don't think about this for a second. Like, we oftentimes don't think of, at least white people, they don't think about the effect of what they do and how it affects everyone. When
Mm-hmm.
there is crime amongst our community, for example, it's within our community
Mm-hmm.
and it affects the people within our community. But what they do affects everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It affects everyone. Just like the white couple that lied on that black man.
Mm-hmm. But
That
that
not only affects him, it affects black people in general.
it's funny you should say that though, because I think we touched on. No, I don't think we have yet. So whiteness and white culture has this habit of trying to make sure that white people are comfortable. White, like one of the tenets of white supremacy is the right to comfort, right? And in that, white culture, white neighborhoods, white, you know, communities, there is this rampant individualism. So while white people might live in this neighborhood together, especially wealthy white people, they love doing this shit. They'll live in this neighborhood together, but they're not truly neighbors. They don't really care about the people that live in their neighborhood. All that matters is me, myself, and I and my nuclear family. The individual family is all that matters. White picket fence and all this, and it on uh average, that in and of itself is a show. You're putting on a show for the world. Behind closed doors, that palm colored family is dysfunctional as hell. Dad sleeping with his secretary, and mom is not happy because again, this like especially within conservative households, right? Everything is about control and patriarchy. The man is the head of the household and he brings home the bacon, and the mom has to stay at home and take care of the kids and take care of the house. Nobody genuinely enjoys that. The dad may be enjoying it because he's getting to do whatever the hell he wants, but he's distant and aloof from his family and his kids. Mom is having to deal with all the emotional labor, all the physical labor of the home. Nobody she is unhappy. As much as conservative women love telling you this trad wife shit is the end all be all, they not happy. They not happy. So that rampant individualism plays into how like crime in white neighborhoods, it's incredibly high. But you never hear about that because everything, whenever white people do something, it's always, no, this is a lone wolf. This is just one particular incident. You never hear about crime ridden neighborhoods of white people, even though that is a major thing. You never hear about that because it's always the individual when it's white people. When it's a black person, it's the entire race. Look at what these black people did. We're a monolith. White people get to be individuals. And there was one more point, and the train sailed off, and now there's blood and explosions.
I will say, as a person who grew up in white suburbia, I co-sign everything about that. The dysfunction, the fact that there is a bunch of crime, especially if it's like typically just
Mhm,
petty crime, but it just gets swept under the rug because it's like, ugh, they're just being kids because they do stupid fucking
mhm.
shit all the
Oh,
fucking
I think I
time.
remembered it. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to bring up
The
was that we were talking about how they will target black people and accuse them of things and whatnot. And it doesn't really matter if we get off on these things. It doesn't matter because the court of public opinion has already judged us guilty. In the United States, black people make up over 60% of exonerations. So they're literally getting accused of shit that they didn't do, getting acquitted, but their life is already fucked up. The employers don't want to deal with them anymore because there was this that they were uh accused of such and such. And I mean, look at what happened to Tyron Lacey just recently. Ended his life because he was under the impression that the entire world hated him because a white police officer lied on him. A white police, if you have not, if you're not up to date on the story of Tyron Lacey, essentially there was a car crash, a head-on car crash. Tyron Lacey was blamed for this car crash, even though he was some 100 yards behind the crash. The police officer on body cam got a witness to lie about how Tyron Lacey had caused the crash. It ruined his entire life. He was supposed to go to the NFL. He had all of these major prospects coming up, ruined his entire life. And all of these things, the truth came out after he killed himself. And nothing is being done and probably will be done about the white officer who lied and got him killed.
can guarantee you it's not because one point I don't want to be rude about it, but I'm autistic. I can't help it sometimes. It's Kyron
Sorry,
Lacey.
Kyron, my bad.
I
All
didn't
good,
even
all
catch
good.
it.
But as somebody who knows the Baton Rouge police around that area, this was a state trooper, not BRPD, but they are kind of all one in the same ilk. Not a single damn thing is going to
Mhm.
get done. I could tell you stories for days about how bad the policing in Baton Rouge is. It's just
Absolutely.
fucking bad. Nothing's going to be done about Kyron Lacey's false accusation.
Yeah, I had a
Not even a suspension without pay.
yeah, I actually had a cousin who I think it was the Baton Rouge area, I want to say, but Louisiana, years ago, unfortunately shot in his back by a police officer. Nothing was ever done about that. His hands was up. He died with his hands up. Nothing was done about that. It was just swept under the rug because of the assumption that he was messing with the cop's white wife when it turned out that it wasn't true.
Wow.
And so, yeah, again, what white people do affects everyone.
Mhm,
What we do in our community typically just affects mostly the people within our community.
mhm.
And you
And,
can't prove me otherwise because then you wouldn't use black on black
mhm,
crime as,
yep.
as this sort of thing of us being savage. Like, stick to one point.
Mhm.
Which one is it?
And I think that, wow, that really does play into how, how white people love saying that there's no such thing as white privilege and white supremacy is not real. Like, racism is a power dynamic. So, white people, as I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, white people can't experience racism. That's not how that fucking works. It's a system of power created to benefit you for the color of your skin. It is a system of power created to benefit you for your whiteness. Okay? That doesn't mean that black people can't be bigoted or prejudiced, but prejudice plus power is white supremacy. That is racism. Okay? So white people can be, they can, like me saying that calling white people, or no, sorry, me saying that white people smell like wet pennies and dog hair. What is that going to do? It's going to hurt their feelings. But what is that going to do to them on a systemic level? Is that going to further the discrimination and disenfranchisement of white people? No. They have the power in most civilized countries in the world. What are my words going to do to them? But the words of white people carry weight behind them. So the president of the United States is literally saying that or when he was campaigning, saying that brown people are going around eating cats and dogs. That riled up his fan base. Just the fact that pets could be in danger. White people. This is another thing that's going to ruffle feathers. White people care more about animals than they do human beings. So that was a double whammy. They already don't like brown people. But then you bring up the fact that these brown people, these hypothetical brown people, could be attacking dogs and cats. Oh no. Public lynchings. We must kill them all. So they know the power of their words. So I don't ever get into these arguments with them anymore about how white supremacy doesn't exist. Racism can go both ways. No, it can't. No, it can't. I'm hurting your feelings. You are systemically holding me, disenfranchising me, systemically justifying my murder. I miss me with the nonsense. We can have a conversation about how the interethnic prejudice and how that plays into our daily lives. But at the end of the day, most of these things can be traced right back to how white supremacy has pit everyone against one another. Because you remember a couple of years ago about the big hype about black on Asian crime. Why are you not saying anything? Most of the perpetrators of those crimes, hate crimes against Asian people, were white during that big hullabaloo on the news. But they focused it on black people because there were several instances of black people, you know, being bigoted towards Asian people during that time period. But they focused on that for a reason. They don't ever want to focus on the issue of white supremacy, the true crime of white supremacy. The same thing that they're doing with Charlie Kirk. It was a white supremacist who killed him, someone who thought that he wasn't racist enough. But they've done everything in their book to shift the narrative. No, he was dating a person that's possibly trans. No, it's got white supremacy loves shifting the blame. We talked about that in the first podcast. You got to focus in on or shift the blame, make everybody angry at each other so that no one can focus on the true culprit, who the focus on the symptoms, not the actual disease.
Yeah, the root of the tree. The root of the
Mm-hmm.
tree versus the leaves, you know?
Yep.
The fact that that whole thing got shifted to, as you said, with control, shifting the narrative. The fact that it wasn't a black person that, shot and killed Charlie Kirk, and yet they were at the HBCUs. What in the world did black college students have to do with any of that? You see where the hatred leads to once the narrative is shifted. And then, of course, same thing with what you said with, crimes against Asian people as well. There were black people that did participate in that, and we can be
Mm-hmm.
honest about that. But, however, they got a whole law that protects them.
Mm-hmm.
We still have a lynching till this day.
Mm-hmm.
Till this day in 2025. Where the hell?
The
is our
KKK
law.
is still not classified as a hate group by the United States
A
government.
hate group. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's Ill-
The United States government buried research done by the FBI about um, right right wing groups, white supremacy groups being the leading cause of domestic terrorism. Straight up buried it.
and that's why
Yeah.
I will
And then
not
also I want to
argue.
be clear,
During
right? I just want to be clear. And I do think that every group deserves a law. Every community deserves some sort
Oh
of law
yeah.
that helps to protect and hold people accountable
Hmm.
who, attack others and, out of pure hatred, racism, bigotry, all of that. But I do think that our community in particular, we have never been protected,
Mm-mm.
unfortunately. And there's no
No.
justification for why there is no protection for us, And so just want to make that clear.
I know it was a bit of a tangent, but we are still talking about true crime, and this all plays into it. It's why a lot of black folks really find it weird how obsessed white people get with true crime, how obsessed, especially like white women, make it their entire personality and whatnot. It's very uncomfortable because they often focus on the crimes that happen against white women. And I understand that they are a part of those groups. But like this is happening in far greater numbers to black women and people of color. And it's just so weird how that same energy you're focusing in on white women who are definitely getting justice, right? But black and brown people, few and far between ever see justice. And I understand that people dying, they're not getting true justice because they're now not alive. I get that. But I'm saying the effort put into crimes committed against white people and white women, they will go, years. This was a cold case, but we brought it back out, and now we're solving this case the first 48 hours, and they will find this person all these years later that killed this white woman back in 1983. You know, but you don't ever really see that energy put into figuring things out when it comes to black and brown people. It's like, oh well, the trail went cold. Guess we can't do anything about it. And this is not to say that police departments are even remotely doing their job the way that they should be, because cold case files, especially when it comes to SA and grape, oh my God, the backlog they have, and
it's
and they
bad.
refuse
It's
to
really
like
bad.
go further with things. Who was it? There was a friend I was just talking to who said that they were talking about a grape. I can't remember if it was them or a friend of theirs, but essentially they had been essayed by some, like they knew the person, they knew who it was. They got the kit done. They got DNA back proving that this person had been essayed. And the police were like, oh, well, got the DNA, but we don't know who it goes to. They know the person, they know who did it, right? They could go get a DNA test from the person that did it. But they were like, we don't have a match in the system, can't do anything.
It has to do with, and I know it's literally like just a semantics thing and it's an excuse, not not worth anything, but it's a matter of, they need to get a warrant to get a swab for that person, and then, you know, that's why it's like, well, if there's no match in the system, we can't really do anything, because then they have to actually bust their ass and do their jobs to go get a warrant signed by a judge to get the
Right.
DNA from
And
them.
that was the most frustrating part. They could have done that little simple thing of getting the warrant because this person knew who had done it to them. And they essentially have gotten off scot. I don't know if anything will happen, now, but whoever did it has basically gotten off scot free just because they refused to go the extra mile. And I'm wearing this shirt for a reason. They're just here to punish and enslave. They actually The only thing that police are here for is to protect the capital of the wealthy. They are not here to be your friend. They are not here to protect normal everyday civilians. The Supreme Court literally ruled that it is not their job to do that. So that's another thing that really weirds me about true crime, because especially documentaries and stuff like that, the first 48 hours and cold case files, they're always interviewing these cops, and it's like the cops always seem so, like, I was here and I remember blah 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 blah. They always seem so competent, they always seem so engaged with their job. That's not what the cops are doing. That's not the cops. They don't give a shit. They
I know cops, they
mm-mm,
do not do that. They do not
they
do that
get their
whatsoever.
10 minutes of fame on TV and they just live it up, but they're not doing their jobs. They don't give a damn. So watching palm colored people and their obsession with true crime, it glorifies law enforcement. It's like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, the cops are here to solve these crimes. That's their job, but are they doing their job? No. The police departments have gotten
If we're being honest, it's not
mm-mm.
their job. Their job is what your shirt basically said. It's protecting
Mhm.
capital. That's it. They're basically a sub-military unit. I think the grand thesis of, what it is about true crime that is, you know, so weird is it hasn't been called out for the propaganda tool for white supremacy that
Mm-hmm.
it is. It is essentially another propaganda tool, especially when you see it on the mainstream media outlets like Dateline and NBC. You know, they stylize it, and every time it's a white victim, they have all the, very pretty pictures of them smiling, and they look so happy and innocent, and then they have the perpetrator who is, the white
Mm-hmm.
husband per se, and they look just as happy and innocent. Like, how could he ever have done this? But when it is a minority, that's not the
Mhm.
case. You don't get these, presumption of innocence in, when the perpetrator is a black person. They throw out the mugshot.
Mm. What
Yeah.
about what
That's the
about that
problem.
other thing we were talking about? How not only is there, like that presumption of innocence, but another reason that I think for a lot of black folks that we're really uncomfortable with the true crime genre is because there is this romanticization of the not only the killings but the serial killers themselves. The way that
Mhm.
there it
Hybristophilia.
is, that's the word. The way that
Hybristophilia.
serial killers are sometimes deified, or like it's like, oh well, you know enough time has passed. I do think that they're that they're a little good looking. I what would I do in
They've
yeah
changed.
what would I do in this situation? I don't think they would kill me. I think it's so
It's pick me
and that's
energy.
why it
Yeah,
makes
it's
me
weird.
really uncomfortable when they do these, like Jeffrey Dahmer, for example. The family of Dahmer's victims, they have asked on multiple occasions that these companies doing different shows and whatnot, you know, stop doing these things. They don't like how Dahmer is being glorified, and they always the almost always these shows are focusing on Dahmer in such a specific way that it makes him, like makes people feel like they're attracted to him. Like that one, I can't remember the actor's name, the one who played the speedster in X-Men. He played Dahmer, and no,
Oh,
Ethan
not Ethan
Hawke?
Hawke.
no.
Hold on, I'm looking it
It
up right
was
now.
so like Evan something?
I know exactly what you're saying, because it's like that's what they do. Because again, in this being essentially a propaganda arm, you have to make this attractive. It's an entertainment industry. You have to make this. attractive to people, which means the main character, i.e., the serial killer, you have to make them
Evan Peters.
attractive. You have to make them
Evan
marketable.
Right.
Peters.
Evan Peters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just goes into feeding the hybristophilia of, you know, that surrounds, these
Hmm.
criminals. And hybristophilia is largely understudied. It's like trying to look up information about it. There's really nothing other than kind of anecdotal evidence of like, well, these women, they find them attractive because it's an adrenaline
I was just
rush,
about to
or
say that.
they know where they are, they have control. And it's like, that's not really getting to it.
Right.
It's not.
Right. I think the
Because it's
adrenaline rush part of it, though,
right.
comes from, I think we can say that that more so applies to just being obsessed with watching true crime.
Hmm.
I would say that gives you an adrenaline rush. It's a controlled environment. We're addicted to fear and horror when it's in a controlled environment, that sort of
And
thing.
it's like that thought in the back of your head, this could possibly happen to me, but it's a controlled environment, like you said, so it's not going to happen to me,
Right.
but this could happen to me because I'm a white woman. Oh, like
Hmm.
it's tantalizing, it's
Yeah.
sensational, you know. um
It's thrill seeking.
mhm.
It's the same reason why you don't see black folks doing rock climbing and, doing things that we know we shouldn't be doing. That is thrill seeking. Our look, just walking out the door every day is enough
Yeah.
because I don't know if I'm going to come back home.
Hmm.
But for them, they're mostly protected,
Hmm. So
in
they're
this
trying to
society.
find
So they have to go
ways.
through exactly.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
fun for them.
That's such a good point, because it's like when you think about like these extreme sports, you see it
Hmm.
primarily white
And this is not
people
to
who
say
do it.
that, black people don't do these extreme sports or these activities. Black people go hiking and
Right.
camping, but it's funny because
Hmm.
we do these things, but we do them from this perspective of being black, and we're going to do them in a way that is typically safer or more like we do things with more common sense, right? We're not going out there to we may be getting a bit of a thrill, maybe, getting
Hmm.
out there doing some crazy things, but we're going to a point. It's kind of like that difference between
Right.
partying with black people versus partying with white people. White people drink to get black out. They drink to off themselves, essentially. Black people, it's like it's fun, it's to get buzz, and that's why I don't party with white people. It's like they go overboard. They do the same thing with activities. It's like, okay, this is fun, but you Jimothy wants to invite you out to go camping up at Red Top Mountain. That's a place here in Georgia. So and Jimothy wants to invite you to go out camping. And cool, that's not a problem. Well, what we're gonna do when we get out there, we're not gonna sleep in tents, and we're like Jimothy wants to do crazy shit. Like I will go camping with you, but I'm not doing that white people shit. I want to be smart about this, right? And it plays into true crime. It plays into horror films. Like we're not trying to play with our lives. It's kind of the same reason we won't play with Ouija boards. I
It,
don't give
it
a
it gets to a
shit.
point.
Hmm.
Yeah, it just gets to a point. Like I
Well,
love hanging out
Ouija
with white
boards are
folks,
not
but my
real.
God, it
Ouija
gets to a
boards are not
point.
real. Yeah, Ouija boards are not real. I don't give a shit. I don't give a good goddamn. You think
Look,
I'm gonna play with a Ouija board?
we're not taking a chance.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No, I'm good.
No.
I want to
Yeah, we're
live.
not taking a chance on certain things.
Look, you got to let me talk to my dad somehow,
Oh
okay?
no. No, why did you Look,
Have we told the story of what happened to your dad?
Listen, I had to. No, we
Oh
haven't.
man. Okay. So, quick
oh
down and dirty
no.
version. Sydney's dad. Oh, come on. This. It's honestly funny now. Sydney's dad.
It's really funny. We can laugh. We can laugh. I give the audience permission to laugh. It's fine. The man The man didn't want to. He retired from the military. He retired from the military after doing his 30 years. And rather than adjusting to civilian life, was like, you know what? I'm going to go be a contractor and I'm going back to Afghanistan. All right. Bennett did so many tours in Afghanistan, risked his life. He was a Green Beret. He was in the special forces and then decides he's going to go back as a retired contractor. And that's when he gets hit in the head with a sniper. Motherfucker.
He did.
He didn't
No,
have to
he
go
did it.
back.
Didn't have to go back. I don't want to deal with. I don't want to file for divorce. I'm just gonna go back to the Middle East. Gets domed.
White people like
Oh
playing with their
shit,
lives.
that's funny as hell. Oh my god. Oh fuck. I don't remember where we were going. There was an it
The thrill seeking,
White people play with their
the
lives, and black people don't.
adrenaline
there was a
rush.
series that I was about to talk about, and I can't remember what it was now. Oh, I hate that. We get so deep into these excellent conversations that I need to start writing down my points because I keep forgetting things. Oh, it
Is
was
it a
the other.
Netflix
Well,
doc?
What? Yeah, that Netflix one, the
The new one?
the
yeah, unknown number,
unknown number.
Oh,
catfish. Yes, this is where, to give a quick summary, basically these two little high school kids who are white start getting these random harassing text messages from an unknown number. Okay. And we go the entire documentary. This goes on for over a year of these kids getting harassed from this unknown number. Mostly the little girl is getting just brutally bullied by this person on the other side of this number, only to find out it was her mother the whole fucking time who was doing
And
this
this,
to
I
her.
think, this one was
Her
such.
own
It
fucking
was
mother.
so. Um, it was so popular because again, it plays into how white women are frail and fragile and need to be protected. But it was the mom who was supposed to be protecting her daughter that was doing these things. And then on top of that, all of this explodes, and yet the daughter still clings to her mother. She was so abused, and she didn't understand it was abuse. She was so abused by her mom that when she found out, it was almost like she couldn't believe that it was her own mom. Mom wouldn't do that. No, it wasn't mom. And she clung, like, was literally clinging physically to her mom when the police came to the house to confront the mom. And the dad is so confused. The dad was essentially like, you got to get out the house. You got to go. Because they've been tormented by this shit for years. It was a couple years, wasn't it?
I think it was about a year or a little
Okay,
over a
yeah.
year,
They
yeah.
were
something like that.
tormented by this, and the dad's, like, been seeing his daughter go through hell. Come to find out, it's his own wife doing this. And then on top of that, she was not working anymore. Supposedly, she's, working for, I can't remember what the company was. She was supposedly working, making money for the household. She was the one who paid all the bills. She was the one who handled all the finances and stuff. Come to find out, she's not even working anymore, doing all this stuff to their daughter. The bills are not paid. It was a shit show. And the dad was like confused as hell because it almost felt like his wife was getting the benefit of the doubt, even though she was the perpetrator this whole time. And
That actually happened. Like I remember there was the family of one girl who got accused. It was a classmate of the girl who was being
yeah,
bullied. Actually saying like, I don't understand how he let this happen. And it's like when you watch the body cam footage of his reaction when he gets there, he's like, the fuck? There's no doubt in your mind that he
hmm
had no idea. There's no doubt whatsoever. But he still was catching strays from this other family who I understand they're angry because their daughter got wrongfully accused. But holy shit.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I think that also plays into the um, while white women are protected, right, under that system of white supremacy and patriarchy, that the fact that white men are always the head of the household does come back to bite them in the ass. They're always seen as the head. They're supposed to be in control. So in this situation, even though his wife had been doing this whole thing behind his back, he had no clue. The blame was still being shifted to him because he is the man and the head of the household. He should have known. And I remember seeing some people talking about, why does his wife pay all the bills? Even though in a healthy relationship between two consenting adults, this is a decision that you two can make amongst yourselves. People were still blaming him. You shouldn't let a woman take over the finances. That's supposed to be your job. Hey, patriarchy comes back to bite you in the ass. Don't know what to tell you.
And it's just not it's not an
Not only
uncommon thing. I mean,
No,
sometimes the man may go make the money and, you know, gives the money to the wife for her to be able to pay the bills, and it just depends on what works for you, but it's definitely not uncommon.
right.
it's not uncommon, but I also feel like that's another thing that kind of plays into white patriarchy. If especially if you look at like quiverful families and how they see the man as being the end all be all in terms of authority, the man does handle the finances. A lot of times, you know, it's expected that women should not know how to handle the
Hmm.
finances, you know? So it was weird that to them that they was like, well, why is she doing all the finances when you should know how much money you have? You should know how much money you're putting towards your bills. How are you, so lackadaisical about this? When in reality, in this particular case, she was a
Hmm.
narcissist. It's the whole reason she was bullying her own daughter. She was a narcissist. She needed the control over the finances. There was never going to be a world where she was ever going to let him have any kind of control over the money that he was bringing in and, the bills that were
Yep.
being paid. Simple as that.
Mm.
I'm glad you mentioned the
So,
control
yes, it really
aspect
does
of it,
kind
because even in the documentary itself, I mean, the fact that she was able to get a documentary, and, that's a whole other thing. But, and yeah, exactly, But where was I going with this? Ooh, I think the train has left.
control.
Yeah, control. She was still able to control her. She was still able to control her narrative in that
Hmm.
documentary.
The whole time
Isn't that crazy?
she was victimized. Like I think when I posted about it on Instagram, everyone had pretty much the same reaction I had. Why in the hell are they making this documentary seem like she's the victim the whole time? Even after she was exposed, the documentary crew, I think they were asking a few questions here and there that were kind of villainizing her or trying to get her to sort of admit her mistakes or her fault or whatnot. But it still was framed in such a way that, oh, she's just a baby. She doesn't really know what she was doing. I mean, committed crimes, and yet she's still being infantilized as if she's this meek and
And
mild, I don't know what came over me.
I feel like that kind of plays into like how we always, talked about like if you were to do the same thing to say a black woman who had done this same thing, she wouldn't have gotten
Mhm.
that treatment. In terms of the documentary, I think it was very intentional that the producers did let her herself into her own hole,
Mhm.
essentially. Where she essentially admitted it on the documentary. She, and then tried to make herself seem like, but I didn't know what I was doing. Like it was intentional, but again, they wouldn't have done that if it had been a
Nope.
black or brown woman who had been accused
Mhm.
of the same thing. And I think that's the issue. If there were equal treatment, I think we would have been fine with the producer's choice in doing this, but there's no way in a world that, you know, in the world we live in
Right.
that would have
Going back
happened.
to what we were talking about earlier, about the differences between how white people and black people exist in society, black children, you know, from a very early age, really dependent on how they physically look, they will be treated like an adult. even though they are a child. Like you're seeing black children get put in handcuffs for crimes that white children commit as well, and white children are just given a talking to. It's because there's this assumption that black people are not only dangerous, but they're older than they actually look. There's always this assumption that a black child may be a young adult or older than they actually are. Because the
It makes me think of Hillary Clinton calling them
mhm,
super predators back when Bill Clinton was running for president or
it
during the
literally goes
Or how
back
presidency.
to
about this? The
enslavement.
fact that, yeah, or the fact that, when you hear about young black men getting shot down in the street, 50 bullets, it took 50, it
Hmm.
took 80, it took 100. Why? It's a human being. He's not the Incredible Hulk.
It's
Why?
because they're afraid. It's always like the big black beast. Black people are it goes like I said, it goes back to enslavement. It's the reason why to this day doctors literally think that black people have some doctors literally think black people have thicker skin, or that black people can tolerate more pain. All of this goes back to enslavement. White supremacist ideals made up about black people to justify their mistreatment. So black kids were always seen as older because they needed to get out in the field and work, or because some nasty ass P3DO at the plantation wanted to have his way with the little girls.
Exactly.
Black folks were always seen as older than they are, and that's still happening to this day. And yet going white folks going on 50, 60 some odd years old are infantilized because they couldn't have known. They're just a little 60-year-old baby. They're so innocent and
Hmm.
sweet. I didn't know she would do like the people who knew her in the documentary talking about this is not like her. I never thought she would do something like that. This couldn't have been her. Not possible.
There were signs, and yet they acknowledged that she, always loved the attention and tried to do
Mm-hmm.
things for attention. It,
Mm-hmm.
they knew.
They know.
Hmm.
And I think that is why so many white people gravitate towards these things. Because even though these things are problematic, like I said before, there's that thought, it's a controlled environment. That thought in the back of their head is, this could possibly happen to me. This is, that was the other thing I was going to touch on. What about the not only the how do you pronounce it, hybristophilia, is that it? Yeah.
Hybristophilia.
So that plays into how we glorify serial killers. I'll be the first one to tell you, I love Dexter, but that's a whole ass serial killer. That's a whole lot. It would not work. I can guarantee you that Dexter show would not work if he was not a white man. It wouldn't work.
I can tell you it doesn't work because there is a serial killer, I want to say it's like South America or Latin America, whose whole thing was killing criminals, and he doesn't get
Nope.
that glorification. I gotta I gotta look that up because it's a fascinating case. But yeah, that was his whole thing. He was killing killers, and nope, didn't get any sort of media attention. So yeah, no,
Or
it's a
even
thing.
like so
Right.
Dexter, the character of Dexter is very he's very fleshed out, and he has his issues and his problems, but he like through the show we see him work these issues out, um, through his work of taking out other serial killers and whatnot, right? And so you're able to create he's like an anti-hero sort of thing, right? On the opposite end of that spectrum, you have someone like Joe from Her, or wait, no, what's the show called? Him? I think it's Him. You.
You.
There it is. I knew it was one of them. Why did you let me do that?
It was a preposition.
Her, him, you. But the show You, Joe is a creep ass piece of shit. And yet somehow it's weird when I watched that show. Somehow when you watch this show, you still end up like rooting for Joe. Like, wait. I don't necessarily want Joe to get caught. I he's stalking women. He's
Mm-hmm.
stalking them, right? And it's not, again, this is from my perspective as a man, but talking with other people who have watched the show, watching it with my ex-wife at that time, women were also rooting for Joe, which is like, oh shit, this man, if this were to happen in real life, Joe is a whole ass problem. Joe needs to go to jail. Joe is terrifying. But we're cheering on Joe in this TV show.
Yeah, they eat up his charm.
Mm-hmm.
He appears to be this normal guy. Even when he's narrating, you would think he's just a normal guy who works in a bookstore, you know. But doesn't justify
That
why he's doing what
leads
he's
into
doing. I mean, Penn Badgley doesn't even like his character. He was so
Mm-hmm.
glad. He was thrilled for the series to end. He was
Mm-hmm.
done because he couldn't even understand why people rooted for Joe.
Yep.
that leads into the kind of dark romance book talk trope. That's a whole other podcast. But before
Yes.
we kind of talk about that for a few minutes, the guy I was talking about, I didn't realize it actually inspired Dexter Morgan. He's Brazilian, Pedro Rodrigues Filho. Brazilian. He was a killer of killers. He was a
So he
vigilante
was so it was a person of color that was the inspiration for Dexter.
for a white guy. Yeah.
Man, see that that plays right into everything else. As much as I love Dexter, you wouldn't have white folks putting a brown person on TV, a syndicated TV show, taking out, even if they're serial killers, like being glorified as a serial killer. You wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have that. The audience, the palm colored audiences of America don't want to see it. The big wigs don't want to see it. It's even the idea of this, of a brown, even if he took out one white person, it's just this idea of a brown person taking out, even though they're a serial killer, taking out another a white person. Oh no. But a serial killer, a fictionalized serial killer, white guy taking out other serial killers. No, A plus. I love this.
Yeah, but it's just like we were saying, the whole thing about hybristophilia and then it leading into, dark romances and book talk and how problematic that is and how disgusting it is. Even though the people who consume this would say, like, that's not something I actually want from a partner, but it's like, y'all go fucking delusional for it though. It's gross. Like how are you as an author able to actually write
I'm going
this
to give
out?
one example of that, and because it plays, I think we should do a whole podcast on that because it plays into pretty privilege. This Those sort of behaviors work because of pretty privilege. The one example I remember very vividly, the first season of Rings of Power, the actor that plays Halbrand, there were signs to let you know who the hell he was. He goes, I mean, feral on several occasions. And me not being attracted to this person, I was like, there is something wrong with this man. I feel there's a darkness surrounding this character, right? But I was reading all this stuff on Twitter at the time. No, couldn't, no. What are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with Halbrand. Halbrand he's, and they're so focused on Halbrand, the character, because of his looks, that they're overlooking what he's doing. Like he is Halbrand's creepy. And if you haven't seen the first season of Rings of Power, I'm spoiling it right now. Halbrand is Sauron. He's the Dark Lord. God damn it. And there were signs to let you know. But white women were wrapped up in, oh my God, Halbrand, he's so beautiful. I love him so much. And then they're surprised when it's revealed, haha, psych, I'm Sauron. And how dare you? I remember talking, they had me at Dragon Con on a panel about this, right? And I brought this up. Again, Lord of the Rings fandom is very white. I'm one of very few black people that are, you know, prominent in these spaces. And probably one of maybe a couple black people that were on panels for Lord of the Rings, especially at Dragon Con, right? So I brought this up. You should have seen the looks on the white people in that room. You would have thought that I had gone and called them crackers. They were like some of them were getting offended, but like I'm not one to shy away from conversations like this. People were literally ignoring who Halbrand was as a character. We're seeing the signs of who he could possibly be. They were ignoring those signs because he looked beautiful. And that's what worked for Sauron. Sauron, the character, literally operated that way. He came across as this beautiful elf to whoever he met. He was beautiful, he was intelligent. He used that to his advantage. And serial killers like Jeffrey Dahmer and whatnot, they use that to their advantage too.
Serial killer Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, um, you know, there's so many of them, and that kind of leads into hybristophilia. Is it essentially is ignoring your, you know, lizard brain telling you this is
Hmm.
dangerous, this is dangerous, this is dangerous, and then consciously or subconsciously overriding that
Yep.
intuition and saying, nope, I like it.
Yeah.
And I think it has something to do with the signals in the brain mixing up fear and adrenaline with sexual
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
arousal.
Yeah. Even when the
I think that
consequences,
might be part of it.
yeah.
Is very much in front of your face.
Exactly.
Oh no, here's the evidence. He killed people. I want to bone him. Ew.
And I like as a man, the opposite end of that spectrum, men are unsavable. We're absolutely horrible. So for example, you'll any comment section you go into of boys being essayed by teachers who happen to be women, men in those comment sections will, oh well, I wish that had been me. If I would have treated her right. Bro, you 11 years old, you're 12 years old, you're a victim. But in men's minds, we're so wrapped up in the like sexual nature of things. We're so wrapped up in our toxic masculinity, if you will, that we can't see ourselves as victims, or we refuse to acknowledge that we're victims. We will do that
Mm.
same thing when it comes to women who are committing these crimes. We It's like, if it plays into that pretty privilege thing. If it had been a you know non-conventionally attractive person, then all of a sudden we can focus in and say this child is a victim. But if it's a pretty looking, especially white woman, forget about
Mhm.
it. They're going to make every excuse in the book to say that, well,
Mhm.
that kid must be soft, that kid must be the, the child is a victim. And I don't ever want to
Yeah.
hear men talk about, what about my mental health when it comes to, whatever appreciation month or day for other marginalized group. Men don't care. At any other point, they only use that as a way to deflect from somebody else's allotted time, or the focus on being on somebody else. Men don't care.
Absolutely, because like, yeah, there's no acknowledgement that a boy can be a victim, a man can be a victim, because they are wrapped up in their toxic masculinity. But they'll use that same thing to throw it back in a woman's face when she says that she's a victim, or when women say, "Hey, we are victims."
Hmm. Look at what
Like, come
happened to
on.
Brendan Fraser. He came forward about the essay that he experienced, and he was basically blackballed
Hmm.
for damn near decades for
Right.
for advocating for himself. Men,
Absolutely.
we know, we can literally see how women, or why women won't come forward, and yet for some odd reason men have this amnesia or act confused as to why, well, I know that what happened to Brendan Fraser was bad. Why was he so quiet about it? Because men were the ones that were chastising him the most. Men.
Right.
They were saying, "Oh, well, he must be gay," and blah 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 blah. Like what? Men don't get essayed, which is absolute horseshit. Well, men don't care about our mental health. We don't care. It's always
Mhm.
passing the buck, shifting the blame, and that's why we need therapy. But we never will go to therapy because we'd rather.
Because patriarchy has conditioned you to believe that you're not supposed to have
Yeah, we would rather
feelings.
do the what is it, $18,000 boot camps for being a better dad,
Oh
or
my God.
going
Yes.
to the edge of a volcano with a bunch of other men and screaming into the volcano. That heals us. No, no more toxic masculinity after that. I threw it into the volcano.
Crazy. Same men that say, but what
Through
about,
toxic masculinity at a volcano. What the
I
fuck?
mean, hey,
It's better than
same men
fracking.
that scream about their mental health. It's crazy. Well, okay, that's enough, Xavier.
Okay.
Or going back to Afghanistan after you've retired.
Ooh, shit.
Oh,
You know what? That is actually the perfect sending off point because, that was perfect. Damn.
on that note,
On that note,
Guys, he's my dad. I can drag him for being dead, okay?
okay, that was an amazing conversation. I mean, it didn't go off the rails. Everything worked so well, and I love that about these conversations. It feels like it's a tangent, but it works in the grand scheme of things. Like true crime in and of itself isn't necessarily a problem, but the focus on centering whiteness and then not acknowledging the issues of white supremacy and how whiteness plays into all this, that makes it icky. I don't like, I mean, do I watch things like Dexter here and there? Yeah, they're enjoyable, but I understand that these things are fiction. I understand that these things
mhm,
are not real. And in the grand scheme of things, I'm not championing serial killers. I'm not. I know that serial killers are bad, and I feel like a lot of people who are into these true crime genres sometimes can blur those lines. It's like, okay, but is are they really bad? Could they possibly be? Because there's that, like you were saying earlier, that fight or flight mixed with like arousal type shit. It's like it's weird, but I really enjoyed our conversation today. That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Should we pick our next topic?
What were the?
the,
Allow me to
Okay,
pull
pull up
up
the
the
list.
list.
oh, Sydney's got it.
Sydney got the list. Oh wait, no, no, no. Next week is supposed to be. We have a guest next week. We have a guest next
That's
week. I'm
right.
not going to announce the
Oh,
guest just yet, but we have a guest next week, and he will be with us talking about the politics of Star Wars. So we're going to talk about the. We're not going to get too deep into it. We're not. We're going to talk about like the saga, the Skywalker saga, and also Andor. We're really going to focus in on Andor because I want to talk about the kind of the comparisons between what's happening now, especially, and what happened in Andor, especially considering they wrote that 3 years prior to what is going on right now. I really am looking forward to that conversation. So we'll do the choice for like next podcast. We'll choose what our next topic is, but for next week, we're gonna have a guest on. So very excited for that.
Very excited for that too. Yeah. Well, is there a way? Well, we'll talk
Okay.
about that later.
Uh,
Okay.
s- Thank you so much for joining me, ladies. Sydney and Desiree. If you would like to say something to end, I will leave it to you, and then I'll send us off.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think at times, we think that we're rambling off, but no, nuance can sort of sound that way to certain people. And so we added a lot of nuance to this conversation. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to next week.
I think Star Wars is going to be a lot of fun, and I don't have a send off, Xavier. You're just supposed to power me off as
Oh,
an
right.
AI.
Cortana, shut off.
Shutting off.
Sorry, SAG. SAG, look.
All right.
SAG, you know what's up. We don't support AI.
But she's not that type of AI. She's not that type. She's not the type that's stealing people's jobs. She is a
I'm just a
yeah, that
Neuralink
thing,
implant.
Neuralink implant. Because I'm a Spartan.
Uh huh.
I'm a 7 foot tall, 1,000 pound Spartan.
In the interest of protecting my career, again, SAG.
Okay. As always, this is Ebony Warrior Studios with blinding speed, master quality, and untold savagery. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. Please go drink some water and take your meds. And I'm not no sugary drinks. Coffee doesn't count as water, you damn neophyte. Go drink some goddamn water. All right? Bye.